Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. As the father of a 5-year-old, I am constantly filled with questions about my son's future. Who will he turn out to be? What can I do now to prepare him to succeed in a world that's moving so fast we're hardly going to recognize it in the next 15 years? Ultimately, I've concluded that the most important thing that I can do right now is focus on teaching him a set of core values that will allow him to excel in whatever path he chooses. Competitiveness, the will to win, pride in craftsmanship, honesty, integrity, gratitude, service, hustle, creativity, and confidence are all on the list. And when it comes to teaching and demonstrating these values, I will take all the help I can get. And that's where my friend Mark Hoverson comes in. I've known Mark for almost 10 years now, and while he has one of the most incredible rags to riches stories that you will ever hear as an entrepreneur, I admire him most for what he's accomplished as a husband and as a father to 4 incredibly bright kids. If you have children already, or if you plan to have them in the future, what Mark is going to share with you here today when it comes to parenting will stick with you forever and will have a dramatic impact on their lives. So here is Mark Hoverson, and please make sure that you listen to the very end of today's show because we're going to do something a little bit different. We have some extremely talented listeners out there in the music space who have offered to let us use their music as we bring today's episode to a close, and I think you're going to dig it. So thank you so much, and here is Mark Hoverson. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Dillard here, and today we're going to be talking to a very good friend of mine that I've known for, 7 or 8 years now, one of the most knowledgeable and successful entrepreneurs that I've ever met, but also, as I've come to discover, really someone that I look up to from a fatherhood perspective and from a parenting perspective, Mr. Mark Hoverson. So Mark, welcome to the show, brother.
Mike, I'm honored to be here. I'm a real fanboy of this podcast too.
Thank you.
I listen to every episode, so I'm pumped to be on.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. So, Mark and I have been entrepreneurs together in the same industry for nearly a decade now. So that's how we've gotten to know each other, and we have some very similar mutual friends. One of which is Eben Pagan, and we've had Eben on the show. And about 6 months ago, to give you guys some context, I heard Mark as a guest on Eben's podcast, and they talked about parenting. And I thought it was the single best hour that I have ever spent when it comes to gaining knowledge on parenting and raising kids, especially as an entrepreneur, that I've ever heard of. You guys are going to be, I believe, completely blown away by what you're going to learn here today. So, Mark, we've really left this as an open format because I'm an open book when it comes to this topic and what you've done to raise your family and your kids. And if there's anybody out there that I, would love to model when it comes to, every aspect of that, you would be the guy. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I can't wait to dive in and, see what we're going to end up talking about.
Well, I'm excited. And like I said, I'm honored to be here. And again, I hear good sentiment like that towards my fathering often, Mike. And one of my dominant backdoor thoughts is like, look at my kids in 30 and 40 years and we'll see. You know what I mean? Like I think I'm doing okay, but really it's like my game is in 40 or 50 years to really see. So the jury is going to be out till then, but I'm excited to be here and we'll rock and roll and see what happens.
Mark, I know a little bit about your background, and I know that when you were first starting out, as an entrepreneur, you were not in the position where you are today. In fact, it was a super humbling, beginning for you. And I'm wondering if you could dive into that story and how it has affected the way that you are raising your kids today.
Yeah. Mike, so I was completely in prosperity and love, meaning I know my family loved me. I knew my grandparents loved me. There was never any doubt on that. And I think raising kids, that's probably the key one for their own self-image, for their own view of the world, that I am safe, I'm secure, I'm loved by a group of people. And they're called my mom and dad and my grandmas and everybody. But from a financial standpoint, we would wake up sometimes, and it's not an exaggeration to say we would check our shoes to make sure that mice weren't in the shoes because we lived on a trailer home in the North Dakota prairie. And so I remember one time, and I've shared this story before, but when Dad would pay bills, it would be in the kitchen and the bill rack would be out. And I remember that was just like a sign to like stay away from the kitchen, because my dad would sit there and he would kind of almost be, sweating blood drops. Like, how am I going to make this money work? So I grew up in kind of a little bit of that atmosphere regarding money, specifically money. And remember just thinking like, there's not enough money, period. And that was like a cellular level thought. And so raising my own, which was good because it kind of made me want to make money, because I knew how many benefits were to having some money. But so for my own kids, a big flip is we were doing a launch, and actually it was with Magnetic. And so it was the relaunch of Info Marketing Blueprint. But the relaunch started at 7 p.m. And I'll never forget this. We had supper, and the launch went live at 7 p.m. Supper was served at 7 p.m. We sat the whole family around the table. And 22 minutes later, it was 7:22. And I said, okay, kids, let's go take a look and see what we've processed. And it was $1,000 a minute. It wasn't, we were at $22,000. It was 722. And it was very important for me, knowing my past and how I was money was very like nervous around my environment, to show the kids I was making $1,000 a minute. Right. Mm. And they look at it, and then I tell them about it. I say, no, I don't get to keep all this, because 50% goes to affiliates. Another of the remaining 50%, 25% go to my partners. And so I'm only clearing 25% of this. Right. And really talking numbers with them. And so I've very purposefully shown them our merchant settlement statements often. And it'll be like, Daddy made $23,000 today. Right.
And how you've got 4 boys. How old are they now?
Yeah, I got 3 boys and a girl. I got 12, 11, 10, 9. So it's pretty much.
And when did you start to talk to them about money? Because, Chase just turned 5, and I'm teaching him, what money looks like for the very first time. Here's $1. Here's 4 quarters, right? At what age did it start to click with them and to make sense, to where you knew that the conversations you were having were being understood?
Philosophically, I'm okay if it's not understood. And so I start pretty young, and I believe financial intelligence is something you grow into. And so I'm planting seeds right now. And so I started planting seeds at 4 or 5. If we're at church, I give them all a quarter, and, they all throw it into the offering plate, and they get used to the conversation of money. We just had, I'll answer this specific question in a second. It's probably 5 or 6 years old, but we just did an indexed universal life policy. So we can do private banking, all that stuff out of it. Mm-hmm. And it was about a 3-hour meeting with a friend that we did the policy through. But Isaac, who's 12, and Gracie's, who's 11, they were in for the entire conversation. And so I told my friend who was sharing the policy, I said, we're not here to teach these kids. We're not here to explain this policy so the kids can understand every bit of it, but we'll take little detours for 1 minute to explain what's going on. Right. Mm. And so they were there the entire time, and semi-engaged and sometimes really engaged. But the point was, we wanted them to see what, 40 years of compounding looks like. Right. Right. And these kind of things. And so a lot of it with money, I think, just dropping ideas and them growing into understanding it. For instance, like with TD Ameritrade, my Micah, he was 7 and he got his first stock. So they all have accounts with TD Ameritrade. And I let the kids decide on a couple stocks to buy. And he bought some stock in a railroad company. And when we drive by the railroad tracks, he will say, like, I own a little bit of the choo-choo train. Right. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't need to understand a whole lot more than that, other than that, at least from an investor standpoint, you're micro owning companies. Right. And so Isaac, he just invested in CVS because he really believes in the minute clinics, and he thinks with the baby boom. Now he's 12. So, but he was saying with the baby boomers rising up, he thinks minute clinics are going to kind of replace big clinics and be more convenient. Now he got that from an article in a newsletter, but I threw him the newsletter and I said, hey, spend 10, 15 minutes, pick a couple stocks, real easy. We don't go deep. I don't care if they have perfect understanding. I just want to introduce the concept to these kids young. And I know for a fact that my 12-year-old knows more about the stock market than the typical 25-year-old does. I just know that because it's immersive. So I would say to wrap, the idea around its immersive education and letting understanding catch up as their brains develop.
What are the core values that you want them to take away when it comes to money and work ethic and, entrepreneurship?
Yeah, value.
It's one thing to learn money, but what are the values that you are teaching them behind that?
Right. So the big lesson is value, right? So this is a really like brass tacks example, but one of my boys, we left, Shani and I were gone for a few hours, and so they all have chores. So they're all working, right? Someone's supposed to mop the floor, the other one's supposed to clean the dishes, the other one's supposed to vacuum the upstairs. And when we get home, everything's done, but my girl is a little bit crying because she says, one of the boys made a deal with me and then got out of the deal. I said, well, what was the deal? She said, well, he said that if I do his mopping, that I can watch TV for as long as I want when I'm done. So basically she was going to do his work and then she was going to get full access to the TV. But after she did that, she went to the boy and the boy said, I'm out of the deal, right? I'm out of the deal. So he already got the value that he was looking for, but he didn't give the value. So in that kind of core value thing, we have a family meeting and I say, life is about exchanging values. And so old school, we do some discipline with the boy. We say, you can't, that's deceptive. It's dishonest. And you really have to exchange value and it's got to be equal and you got to follow through on your word. So, that'd be like a case, like a real brass tacks example of how we implement that kind of thing. But the main thing is excellent work. So when the kids were literally 3 years old, as soon as they were able to do any work, we started having them do work and really celebrating good work. So I remember I gave Isaac a corn cob. He was about 3 years old. And I said, you're going to shuck the corn. And I said, here's one cob. And he's a little boy. He's a baby. And I said, here's the vision.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We want to have a perfect shucked corn cob, perfectly shucked. And so he would kind of shuck it and clean it off and bring it to me and there'd be strings on it. And I'd say, this is so good. We're almost there, but I still see strings. We want a perfect corn cob. So then he would go back and he'd kind of start de-stringing it. He'd bring it to me and I'd say, it's just about perfect. But do you see this part? Do you see that part? So the details of like perfection in service have been really big. So then when it comes to shining shoes, I'll take out my leather shoes and I'll teach them how to really take dignity and love of doing just an amazing job with work. And I think in time, monetization and models and systems, they can add that on top of a foundation of providing amazing value when they do a job.
I want to dive into the shoe shine thing a little bit more because I think success is in the details in an exercise like that, like you did with the corn cob, right? So you're going to have them, you're going to teach them how to shine your shoes and really dive into the details of that process because, there's going to be a point when they're going to think they're done, right? Or maybe if they're not enjoying it and they want to stop it, but that's the opportunity in that moment to either learn a bad lesson or to learn a good lesson. And so I would really love it if you would just elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, and I'll give another example too. When it comes to wiping the table after supper, I say, well, number one, we always have one of the siblings check the work. So nothing's ever done till it's checked and signed off. Okay, that's de facto along everything with shoe shines, cleaning the cars, wiping the table. But I say the table has to pass two tests. One is a blind with just the hand over the table. If there's any gunk, if I feel any gunk, if I feel any jelly, if I feel any butter, if I feel any salt, it's a touch test. There shouldn't be anything I feel at all when the table is touched if I'm not looking at it. And then there needs to be the visual test. So I look at the table and is there anything on the table? So we call it 5-star. And so I'll say to the kids, okay, go 5-star the backyard. And that means it's the equivalent of I'm going into the Four Seasons, I'm renting this place and I'm stepping to the back and I'm a guest. Is it 5-star? So we don't 5-star everything because you can't live 24/7 5-star. The kids would be neurotic. But sometimes I'll be like, okay, the kitchen is going 5-star. And the equivalent is like, hey, we just rented this house. We're walking into it. It's brand new. It's showroom. So with the shoe shine, it's the same thing. It's like step one, all the dust gets off. You're just scrubbing it with a dry brush. Everything gets off. Step two, you take a simple wax, and just kind of walk them through, and I'll have them watch a little wiki article on how to do a shoe shine, and I have all the tools there. But then I look at it and I say, you can see that the gloss is a little thicker here. And so when it dries, it's going to leave an oil patch compared to over here. And really it's it's the finest things, what I believe. And again, 30, 40 years will tell the tale on it. But what I believe is having the kids have an eye for what perfection could be with a corn cob, with a table, with a shoe. And then in business, they already recognize what excellence looks like. For instance, one of the kids said to one of my kids, hey, if you go on Apple and you go on your phone and keep refreshing, they're giving away an iPad. And if you just keep refreshing, eventually you'll get the iPad. And Isaac, who's 12, he goes, look, Apple's too big of a company to do something stupid like that. Right. Like, so he already gets that, Apple's got it kind of getting it down. So anyway, with doing the work, I think it's really falling in love with a perfect job, or as good a perfect as it could be. So
now what happens when they, do they ever throw a fit and they want to go play a game or play outside? How do you balance trying to teach a lesson at that young of an age versus?
Well, we do ridiculous amounts of fun with the kids. And so we don't have a lot of tension because I just took Isaac to Telluride last week. So it's me, him, and my apprentice. And we ski for 3 days, ski in, ski out, eat where Tom Brady eats, Samuel Jackson. And he knows that he's getting a great deal here. You know what I mean? And so we'll tell the kids, we play really, really hard. We're, similar to you, Mike. Like when you go to the Baja and you ride your, drive that, race car thing, you're going all in there. And then when you work, you're going all in. And I tell the kids, it's like, hey, let's go all in here. So we work really hard, but we're going to North Dakota, all of us, for 2 weeks. And then we're coming right back and we're going to Wolf Creek in Colorado for a week of skiing. And it's all play. And so I think if it was all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but all play and coddling your kid and making sure they're okay and no work makes for an entitled, terrible kid. I literally just this morning, I was visiting with a friend who does some services, blah, blah, blah. A very wealthy family, like a renowned area wealthy family. She was telling me how their 19-year-old is addicted to cocaine because he's an entitlement kid. Right. And so I have very little illusions that, especially in the entrepreneur industry, a lot of the stories we tell ourselves is like, oh, we're going to make money so our kids don't have to suffer like we suffered, or we're going to make money so the kids can have things we never had. I don't come from it that way at all. Not at all, because how many wealthy parents do we know whose kids are entitled and totally hooked on drugs and unmotivated? You know what I mean?
Sure.
I have no illusions of that at all. So I love to show that I want them not to obey the standard, but love the standard. Love what the dignity of a perfectly shined shoe. Love it. Right.
So, if one of your kids was 5 years old at this point and they want a toy, they want to buy a movie on, Apple or, whatever it may be, what was the process for that? Did they have to earn it? What did they have to do to get that?
So, okay. There's no hard rule on it. So it might just be like we're driving around. They're like, oh my gosh, the new movie came out. And it's like, all right, let's go get it. Big deal. Because there's a level of abundance that's good, I think, in that respect. But let's say Gracie tells me she wants to go to San Francisco. This was literally last year. And I'm like, Gracie, here's how it works with me. I'm never going to tell you no. You got to learn to sell me. I said, so figure out how to sell me on San Francisco. So she comes and she's got a little color. She drew a picture, and it was us in a little canoe thing. And we're whatever. And she's like, there's San Francisco, and there's us eating, and there's us painting in San Francisco. And then she would tell me a little fact about San Francisco. And then I said, okay, if you come up with $300, that will help with the plane ticket and help with the car rental, and it'll help with the hotel, and we'll do full San Francisco full tilt. We'll go to the giant sequoias. We'll grab a canvas and paint over a bay. We'll do it all. And so it was like 6-7 months, and I put it on Facebook. It's somewhere on Facebook. But she shows up, and she's got a fistful of dollars and a big jar of coins, both arms spread out to me, and she goes, "Here it is, Daddy." And I said, "What is it?" And she said, $300. I said, how'd you do this? She said, the Lemonade Crusade. I picked up extra chores around here. I saved my birthday money. I'm ready to go. And so I'm a yes dad all the way. It's just like, yes, and sell me. Just sell me. And like, I'll triple down your effort. I just want to see a little bit of something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You got to give me a little bit of something. And so with work, here's another. So my boy Isaac, he's 12, like, and again, personal, like, father-son trip to Telluride for a couple of days. And selfishly, that's half for me. I love skiing and whatnot. But he's really pumped for stuff. And I said, okay, do a direct response service for our community, which is just go door knocking and do an interior car wash. Because we were thinking, like, how can he make money around here that's not just a lemonade? Because the Lemonade Crusade, we've done that. They're good with it. It always works. But I'm like, it's seasonal. It's kind of like, depends on the temperature, this and that. But people's inside of their cars dirty all the time. So anyway, he came up with a direct response, step 1, step 2, step 3. So it's knock, knock, knock. Hi, my name's Isaac with Isaac's Amazing Interior Car Wash. And if you have 1 minute, I'd love to show you what I can do for your car. And step 1, I take out all the mats. Step 2, I vacuum all this. Step 3, I wipe down the entire blah, blah, blah. Step 4, step 5, you look over it. And when you're perfectly satisfied, it's $5. Okay. So he formulates that, and I throw him a Dan Kennedy book, and I say, write a 1-page sales letter to have someone feel compelled to say yes for $5, right? So it sounds good so far, right? This is where it gets real, though. He actually pulls his little wagon with the vacuum, with the Armor All, and he goes and knocks on the first door. And it's I said, go to the other side of the neighborhood. So, people go over there to fail, right? So anyway, he goes over there, he knocks on a couple doors. It was, whatever, just like, what are you doing? Get out of here. No, thanks. First 2 doors, he comes back. He's not crying, but he's kind of crying. And he goes, this is stupid, Dad. Like, this is stupid. And so I take him to the whiteboard, and I said, this is how it's going to work. I said, number 1, quit being a pussy. Period. Like, this is ridiculous. This is an amazing service for $5. I would love a 12-year-old kid to come and clean my car spotless, how you can clean it, because you clean my cars. Like, he cleans the Escalades, and he does a great job. And I said, for $5, this is a steal. I said, you go knock on 40 doors, and you come back with your smiles, right? So I said, that's it. Get out of here and knock on those doors. Wear a smile, do your thing, keep doing it, and it's going to work. You're going to see. People are going to love this. He knocks. Now, he comes back in an hour and a half. He's got $25. He's beaming almost as though he could walk on water. He goes, oh my gosh, there's this lady. And I started doing it. And she was so excited. She went and told her neighbor 3 doors down that I was doing this thing. And she came over, and then she said, come over to my house. And then they asked if I could walk their dog or pick their garden weeds. And oh my gosh, Dad, like, it's unbelievable. But there was that little margin where it was like, Isaac, quit being a wuss. Quit it. Like, go do it. Because I knew it was valuable. But his fears. And so from my perspective, what I want him to see is a great idea, the death of that great idea, which all of our ideas go through, right? Yeah. And I want him to work through the death. That's all I'm looking to do. Like, I guess at the end of the day, I want him to be able to work through death to get to glory again. And so it was a great idea. So now, he can go knock on doors, and he can bring up $20 like clockwork anytime he wants. And that's a powerful thing. That's a very powerful thing.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And, it's things like that. And then like the lemonade, Oh, good.
Mike, so just case studies, I'm kind of a marketer, so I'm big into case studies. Another case in point, Gracie can run like the wind. She's stupendously fast. And her very first race, she was 6 years old. And there was about 500 kids in this race through like fifth grade, and she was in first grade or something like that. And anyway, I come to the race, right? And Shannon, my wife goes down there and says, "Hey, Daddy's at the race, so like run extra hard." And she goes to Shannon and says, "The coach said I don't have to run that hard." And Shannon goes, "Well, Daddy's here. You better run hard." Okay. And she goes, "No, the coach said I don't have to." And it was like, okay, so I'm there, and it's a little like it's a 2-mile race or something. The first bend goes around, and she's just kind of prancing with her little friend, like prancing, like prancing. And I go, "Hey, Grace, like kick it up. Let's go, let's go, let's go." And she just kind of looks at me like, "Whatever, Dad." And then there's the next bend, and I'm like, "Gracie, let's go, let's go, let's go." Same thing, prancing.
Man, that would drive me crazy.
Same thing, prancing. Well, anyway, it's at the very end, and there's a long line, there's a line of parents that's probably 100 parents on both sides. I'm not kidding. And as soon as you finish, there's ribbons, and there's Gatorade, and there's an apple, and there's cheering, and there's high fives. And it's like you run through this tunnel of celebration.
Yep.
So this is about 30 yards from that tunnel. Okay. And she's coming by the last bend. And I go, "Hey, Gracie." She looks over at me, kind of like, whatever, Dad. I said, "Come here, come here." And I just kind of take her hand, and I said, "Don't make a scene. Just hold my hand." And I walked to the car, and we went home.
Yeah.
And this is that moment that we all don't really know if we're doing the right thing as a parent, like truly, like I'm just guessing I'm doing the right thing, but I don't really know. And she gets in, and it's wailing. She's screaming, "Daddy, you didn't let me finish the race. Like, it's my first race," screaming. And I said, "Gracie, we'll talk about it when we get home." So we get home. We have a family conference. We have the family conference maybe once every 2 months. Okay. So it's not like we're doing it every night.
Got it.
Right? It's family conference. I said, "Okay, here's the deal, kids. When you're a little older, the world's your oyster. Okay. I mean, you do whatever you want." I said, "As long as we're in this house," this is so old school, right? But I said, "I don't care if you're in 7th grade. I don't care if you're in 10th grade. If you're in a sport or in a game and not giving it everything, I'm going to walk you off the court. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to subject." And I said, "I don't care if every home in America quits trying. This will be the last house. We're the last house that stands. You will give it all. You will give everything you have, or just don't do it." So I said, "Gracie, you never finished the race, but you never started the race. Okay. And you're just not going to get this is not how you do life, period." So now that's a strong moment for sure. But the story goes on, and 2 weeks later, there's another race. And I said, "Gracie, here's the deal. Look for the head ahead of you and just pass the head." She took second out of about 300 kids.
Wow.
And when she ran up to me, I mean, I wish I had it on video. She ran up to me and squeezed my neck and leapt into my arms and said, "Daddy, I did it. I did it." Almost crying again, but crying victory. She was passing 4th graders. She was passing 5th grade boys. She was killing everybody. She got a medal, and she deserved the medal. And she got a real win, not a fake win, right?
Yeah.
And she got confidence. And so I do those things a lot, but it's in that middle. I'm not going to pretend like in that middle ground. Sometimes I'm not going, "Geez, I hope I'm not damaging the kid right now," because you get pulled out of your first race, like, geez, well, that's a close call, but I have no regret on it because she is a champion. And now she was the punt, pass, and kick champion over the boys and all this stuff. Because I told her, if you're going to compete, go for it. Or, one or the other.
You're not catering to weakness, which is what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
You're not rewarding and catering to weakness. And man, that's so valuable and so powerful. Do you have any case studies that you could share when it comes to teaching your kids between right and wrong?
All the time. Right? I mean, it's all we're doing is right and wrong. And it's different perspectives, right? And so a lot of times I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm playing devil's advocate all the time, right? So I really want the kids to back off on good and bad and really embrace perspective and then personal decision and personal preference in light of perspective. And so it's just too cheap, I feel, to tell the kids that's good and that's bad.
Mm.
Here's a case in point. One of the kids, we're taking a selfie, okay? And I notice one of my kids isn't smiling, really. It's smiling weird. It's just a weird smile. And I said, well, like, smile. And they're not really smiling. I said, well, what's going on? And they say, well, my teeth aren't that nice. And I said, really? And I wasn't angry, but I said, who told you your teeth weren't nice? It's okay. Like, it's no big deal. That's why we have braces. It doesn't matter. And they said, well, so-and-so, a couple of the brothers did. And I said, really? So the couple brothers come over and I say, here's the thing. When I was your age, I would take my younger brother, I would put him in a sleeping bag and I would throw him down the stairs. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it was fun. It was a weird game, but that was our game. And it was kind of endangering him, and he never broke any bones, and it was kind of picking on him, and it was kind of mean, and it was kind of teasing. And you telling your sibling that the teeth aren't cool and they don't have nice teeth is not going to fly, because that's my child. Okay, so you're teasing my child, and you got to learn some kindness. And then what I teach them, I said, you guys as a crew are going to be more influential on who you marry, on where you go to college, on what you do for business, on what you do for investments, than even I am in like 20 or 30 years. I said, so you guys as a crew, it's really good for you guys to start loving on each other right now. And by the way, don't tease your sister again. Because if you do, that's your warning. I did it to my brother too. But if you do it again, it's going to be like Charles Ingalls around here. We're going old school. So you don't do it again. But so before I discipline, almost every single time, there's a big window of mercy and there's a window of my own story. Because I've done everything. I've stolen, I've cheated, I've lied, you name it, I've done it. And so when they do that, which is inevitable for a person to do, I tell them, hey, I always try to find a case study, a point in time when I lied, when I stole the pack of gum from the grocery store. But then I tell them, hey, you know what? I stole that pack of gum when I was in 3rd grade because it was a Gatorade gum and I wanted it, and I stole it, and I knew I could get away with it because the guy wasn't looking. And I said, when I was a sophomore in high school, I went back and I said, can you charge me for 3 packs of gum? And they said, why? I stole this when I was a kid and I just want to clear it out of my conscience. And really your store, I stole from your store. And I said, so I've done what you did here. Okay. I've done it. And it's not good. It's not good for the psyche. It's ripping somebody off. It's not, you don't need to do it. So that's like my discipline is kind of works like that.
No, well, I think the most important part of this is that you're speaking from a perspective of experience, and you're open and willing to share that, rather than you're just taking the position of that's wrong, you shouldn't do that, and I'm perfect and I've never done anything like that, right? Whether it's said or unsaid, that's the message that's coming across, and so I think that's super powerful. And
I think as a parent, a huge lesson that I think is valuable as a parent is to let the kid know that I'm just further down this road. Okay, I'm not vastly superior to you in any real way. I'm older. Okay, I'm older. And that's really about it. And I said now, and so philosophically or theologically, I do say, I'm steward. You guys are gifts to me. You're a gift from God to me. And I'm managing and stewarding you so that when you're older, it'll be what it'll be. But it's really kind of a stewardship. That is how I view parenting.
Right. Exactly.
And then theologically as well, I see them as the image of God. And so just their possibilities, I want to open up their potentials and their possibilities and get them there without, get them there with some decent self-esteem and respect for others and, those basic things.
So one of the most brilliant things that I've ever seen you put out there when it comes to parenting and raising kids is the Lemonade Stand program. We've got about 15, 20 minutes left. I would love it if you could dive into that.
Yeah. Well, the Lemonade Crusade, really, it started, I was in the middle of two other launches, Mike. Like, when you're in the middle of a launch, like you're busy. And I'm driving and this kid has a little lemonade stand, right? And we pull up to the lemonade stand and it's a little Dixie cup. It's wilted. There's dust in the lemonade. The lemonade's watered down. It's not cold. We weren't looked at in the eye. It was a quarter. It was given to us. It tasted terrible and we're driving away. And I asked the kids, I said, okay, kids, was that lemonade stand for us or was it for her?
Right.
And say, well, it was probably for her. I'm like, yeah, probably. So whatever. That kind of just irritated me a little bit. I was glad that she was out there. Maybe her parents just said, go do a lemonade stand. I don't know the story. But so that was kind of the first seed. But then that was in Arizona. And then we flew home to North Dakota for the summer. And I'm walking and I see this little lemonade stand flyer. And it was on a crinkly piece of paper, unlegible, taped to a tree on someone else's property. It was on our property, no permission or whatever. And it was like lemonade, 25 cents, and a really broken arrow down to an equally horrible lemonade stand that a neighbor kid was doing. And I wasn't livid. I was just like, the kids got to learn something here. The kids are at the mercy of not having a resource here for lemonade. It doesn't appear. So I'm in the middle of two launches and I spend 3 hours and I gamify a 5-star lemonade stand, from literally point of purchase experience to upsell experience to the taste of the lemonade to sanitation on. They gamified we basically franchised how to do a 5-star lemonade stand. And for instance, when someone bought, they had to be able to, you got 5 extra points if you had fresh cubed lemons that you could pick with tongs and say, would you like fresh lemons in your lemonade? If you said that, you got 5 extra points. And there was a sponsor, an auditor, that usually a parent or an older brother or something, that watched everything. Your signage, you had to have at least 3 signs, one at the point of purchase, one at a point of traffic, and it had to have at least 3 colors on it. And it had to say, amazing lemonade stand. And we had all this criteria. So we basically teach a gamified lemonade stand from point 0 all the way to, when someone purchases, they're offered an upsell. And the upsell has to be, I think it's 2 to 3 times the purchase price you bought it. So if you go to the dollar store and you get 3 little play cars for $1, you got to sell that car for $1. So if you get 3 for $1, you got to sell one of them for $1. And you have to, and I teach a margin, and then they have to do a profit and loss and submit that. Okay. And the whole, literally the whole show, it's almost a perfect business model. Well, anyway, so kids start doing it. Kids in New Zealand, Montana, Florida, all over the place. And kids are getting consistently, not every time, but almost every kid that does this has a story of somebody who drives up and says, wow, and gives them a 50, gives them a 20. We've had a guy drive by and go, wow, here's 100. I don't even want the lemonade. I'm out of here.
Nice.
So these kids are, and then we split tested, and then the kids are curating the best practices too on this website and in the community and stuff. So we found out that a free will offering with a really well done up lemonade stand and a free popcorn offering or a free bite of brownie will get you $2 to $5 a glass.
Nice.
Right?
So guys, this is over at lemonadecrusade.com. And this is a site that Mark made for this, and totally free, correct?
Yeah. And, I think it's always going to be free.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my vision for it. Because I really, with the kids in particular, I want it to be impossible for someone to go, there's some agenda here.
Right.
You know what? It's just we're just giving away cool stuff to get kids to be inspired to do cool things.
So you have this, you basically have a contest every summer. Your next one here is scheduled for summer 2016.
Yeah.
And this is amazing. It's like basically a blueprint for a lemonade franchise where kids from all over the country get to compete against each other and become essentially entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And it's unbelievable, the effort. It's unbelievable. It shocks parents. I'll have parents tell me, I've never seen my kids so motivated. I said, well, we're giving away an iPad. What do you think? It's like, come on, we're giving away t-shirts, and they're getting to have this international community of young entrepreneurs. And most of the kids are kids of entrepreneurs like us. So the way I looked at it, another big drive behind it is I'm all for youth athletics. I was an athlete. I love hockey clubs and baseball clubs and gymnastics. I'm a 1,000% for all of that. What I noticed though was the amount of intensity that parents put into a basketball league, like the volunteering, the commitment to practicing, the commitment to buying shoes, the commitment to flying to Las Vegas to spend the weekend for the tournament, all this stuff. And I'm like, where's the entrepreneur league? Where's the incentive where the kids can get so pumped that they get medals, they get prizes, they get dignity, they learn teamwork, they build community? Because sports builds great community. Some of my best friends I met in baseball and basketball and football and all these things. I'm like, what if there was like an entrepreneurial league for kids? And then when your kids were young, that was the time, just like with all of the hockey clubs, when your kids are in it, that's when you pour your resources and your time and your intellect, and you help build the club, right? And so I'm like, my kids are young now, so I'm going to start this. I'm not going to do this forever. I'll do this, another decade or so. But we're already having parents come up and say, hey, how can I help out? How can I make these prizes a little hotter? How can I, add anything to this thing? And so part of it is like, what if we had the kind of intensity? Just imagine, like you're in Texas, Mike, football. What if we had entrepreneurial excitement like we have football excitement?
Right.
And I believe it's possible. And you know why I believe it's possible? I've seen it. I know it's possible. It's just simply people creating platforms, people creating prizes. The kids wouldn't go to the tournament if there wasn't trophies and medals and cheering and clapping, and people love applause. And so what if we created entrepreneurial applause for kids? And that's what started happening. It's been really, really cool. And, part of the vision for the Lemonade Crusade is, if you can go to lemonadecrusade.com, and I think the whole game, everything's right there. So I think it's all just right there. But the business model for profit and loss, mindset, and the whole thing, it's kind of all there. It's like $1 million business plan in a way. And so I think some really, really successful entrepreneurs in time are going to come out of this. And my secret little hope, and maybe my ego's a little involved in it or something, but is that when they're 25 and they're at the $10 million mark at 25, because they're going to be beating what we did, Mike.
Sure.
I mean, come on, these kids, are you kidding me? Isaac has already been making money online. He did a Fiverr campaign and started getting so much work, he stopped it because it was a service-based one. He's like, I'm out of here. There's too much work.
What was he doing?
He was doing positive affirmations. So most of them were for my clients, but it was cool. He went on Fiverr and he'd do a voiceover. So for my Solomon CEO, it's like, the hand of the diligent will rule, right? So he'd put your name in the middle of it. So Mike Dillard, your hand is diligent and you will rule in the marketplace, right? So he would just like personalize kind of a mantra audio for you to listen to. But it was beautifully sculpted. It was really well done. And he's got a really sweet voice. So what happened is once he started getting some reviews, Las Vegas football reached out to him, the Las Vegas flag football, and he did the voiceover for that. Cartoon came over and said, will you do the voiceover for that? And now, he sees the world as oyster now. And it's hilarious. But when he was doing those audios, we did a video upsell option. So he would speak into the camera with a really nice setting behind. And it was $5. This is the key though. It was $5 and they would show me the first edit. And I'd say, does that look like something that Apple would put out? And they'd go, well, no. And I'd say, well, go back and redo it and make it perfect. Thank me later. Thank me in like 20 years, but go make it perfect. And so it was real work. I mean, Isaac was actually working and he might work 90 minutes for $5. And Shannon's helping him edit, but he's learning how to edit, learning how to do videos. But what happened was he blew up to the point where he had as much work as he could possibly handle. And then he said, you know what? It's too service-based. I got to have something more automated and scalable. But he's learning these business models. And he was like 8 years old.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
So anyway, I'm not sure where I'm going with any of this stuff, but
No, I mean, that's just, what I find most inspiring about this is just hearing the case studies, right? Because,
Yeah.
essentially I'm a single dad, so I'm doing
Right.
this in a very isolated environment. So just having the ideas and the inspiration for all of these little case studies that you've shared for me, I find personally invaluable. And I'm sure everybody who's listening to this who has kids as well will feel the same way.
Yeah.
I'd almost love if you wrote a book on this, all of these
Yeah.
types of things.
One of these days, if I can, one of these days I probably will. But, another case study thing is I love part of the vision that I have for my kids is that they have a real community of men in particular, just because there's a big assault on, the man, it's just like I don't know. Here's my point. Let me get to my point. My point is I love having my kids spend time with like Jonathan. My kids, they'll literally spend time with Vince Reed, Aaron Fortner, like entrepreneurs, great men, because I want them to have resources to understand that daddy complex is one of the biggest issues. A kid, you want to talk about the addictions, the dysfunctions, the body images, not all of them, but so many of our dysfunctions of an adult comes back to daddy issues. And what I really purposefully want my kids to have is a real robust perspective of manhood and be surrounded by great men. And where I literally tell them, my ideas are uniquely mine. They're not ultimate. They're not the only ones. Go get this perspective over here. Go listen to it. This is a good man. Hear what he has to say about this. And spend time. Go fishing. I have them going hunting and fishing and stuff with all sorts of different guys. And that's on purpose because I want them to have just this robust view of manhood. And I know most of your listeners are men too, but fatherhood can do real weird things with your ego. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of like set your ego aside for a second and say, I don't want my son to worship me. It's the last thing I want. Not that anybody's even consciously thinking of that, but it's like, I want my kid to have a lot of man perspective. And so these are just concepts, Mike. I'm just rambling a little bit, but raising kids has been one of the most exciting things I'm doing for sure.
That's been awesome. I really hope that you'll give, Tucker a call or something and get with the Book in a Box team over there and start turning these stories into a book. I think that'd be amazing.
For sure.
That'd be awesome. So we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left. What is the last thing that you would like to share with everybody who's listening to this today? If you could give one last piece of advice.
When it comes to fathering or parenting, being most of your listeners are men, I think being really conscious of thinking about what was it like when I was 9 and I'm going to the mall and kind of disattaching our ego a little bit and setting it on the kids mindset. It's just like good marketing, right? What's the mindset of our buyer? What is it exactly? Right. And just to remember how big the world was when we were kids, and then to be a kind of a guide on the side and a strong guide, giving the kids a sense of identity and these kind of things. Those are kind of generic stuff. Again, I'm always better with case study type deals, but, letting the kids know that they're really loved, but then not having that mean marshmallows. Okay. It means more than marshmallows. A lot of love can mean really strong and awakening the strength in your children, letting them achieve, letting them feel the thrill, the absolute unexplainable thrill of achievement, and letting them have that idea and the death, like we talked about a little earlier, the death of that idea, but then overcoming it and then they get victory.
Right.
So I think the more victories a kid can stack, right, in their life, the more self-esteem they have, the more perspective they have, and just I think they can go into the world and really contribute.
Absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. Well, guys, go check out lemonadecrusade.com. It's one of the most valuable, brilliant things I've ever done. And Mark, thank you for taking the time and effort to put that together and to make that just freely available to the world, because I think it's going to absolutely change the lives of so many kids and even family dynamics. So thank you for that, brother. Where should people go to connect with you, to follow up with you, and just kind of keep up with with what you've got going on?
Yeah, minutewithmark.com I have a podcast. And so I'm kind of, once a month, once every other month, throwing something out there. And so minutewithmark.com is just a decent place to kind of catch up with what I'm up to. But before we go, Mike, I really do want to thank you. I don't know if I've told you fully, but I'll tell you here in public. You can edit it out if you want to. But there's only been 2 or 3 people that have impacted my career like you have, and your courage and how you move forward. You're always thinking of the next level of contribution to the world, and your commitment to it. And I've really followed you a lot, and I've learned so much from you. And I really thank you for the courage that you bring to the market. I so much want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I feel the same way, especially when it comes to this topic, which is where, I feel like I could improve a lot. So I'm grateful for you, brother. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time today. Guys, go check out Mark, get to know him. He's one of the most amazing men I've ever met. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Once again, thank you guys and gals so much for listening today. I'm always looking for ways to improve the show and to bring more value to you. So I have a favor to ask. If you are friends with an amazing man or woman that you would love to see as a guest on the Self-Made Man podcast, please send me an email to tips@selfmademan.com. Again, that's tips@selfmademan.com, so my team can learn more about them and potentially have them on the show. And as I mentioned at the beginning of today's show, we have a few talented artists out there who listen to Self-Made Man, and I would like to start featuring their music so we can have something awesome to end our sessions with. So if you're an artist or if you know one who'd like to be featured, once again, send an email to the same address, tips@selfmademan.com, so we can check out your work and hopefully give you some exposure here to our audience. As for today's exit, here is a fellow self-made man. His name is Illustrated, and this is his new single titled Traitor, which has been on my Spotify list since I came across it last week. I absolutely love the song. I hope you enjoy it as well. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.
Let's run away where the light stays, where these lives are wanted. Hope isn't far, and it's all ours if we just keep on it. So come now, we're making our escape. They'll tear us down if we hesitate. Just take my hand and let's test fate. We'll never break. We'll be traitors in the night. Tonight we'll go. Yeah, we can take them in the fight. Tonight we'll go. You'll just need me know